This is Omega File 451. Loch Ness, Scotland. I want you to take the next plane to Scotland, said Arla. Then get up to Loch Ness. Oh, great, said Hawker. Are we looking for the Loch Ness monster? Old Nessie? Jude laughed. Don't laugh, said Arla. You are looking for a monster. Oh, come on, Arla, Jude said. You don't mean that. This photo came by email from Edinburgh, said Arla. Look. He turned to his computer and opened a file. It's a nighttime photo and not very good. Hawker and Jude stared at the photo on the computer screen. They could see water and something big and grey, half in, half out of the water. It's got arms and a head, said Hawker. But what is it? It kills sheep, cats and dogs, Arla said, and perhaps small children next. People in Fort Augustus are screaming at London, and London is screaming at us. Go and find it. What do we do with it when we find it? Asked Jude. Kill it, said Arla, before it kills you. Hawker and Jude waited for a minute, but Arla turned away and began to read his emails. Are you telling us everything, Arla? Asked Hawker. Of course. Arla put his hands on the table. There were only 2 fingers on his left hand. I always tell you everything. You know that, huh? Said Jude. They took a plane to Inverness, then drove along the side of Loch Ness to Fort Augustus. It was a grey November day. Grey sky, grey water, grey hills. Hawker looked across the loch. It's easy to believe in monsters here, he said. Loch Ness is about 200 metres deep, the 3rd deepest lake in Europe. Did you know that? 100 monsters could live down there. How are we going to find this thing? Asked Jude. Talk to people in Fort Augustus first, Hawker said, then take it from there. They talked to people in their hotel and to people in the streets of Fort Augustus. Everybody had a lot to say. It killed Mrs. Fraser's dog, said one woman. She has a house down by the water. The monster came into her garden one night. Her little dog went to look, and the monster killed him, just like that. Killed 6 of my brother's sheep, said a man called Dougal. He's very angry about it. Can we meet your brother? Asked Jude. Ask him some questions. Dougal's brother Archie lived at Invermorrison, about 9 kilometres up the loch. He was a big man with black hair and blue eyes. He was not very friendly at first. Who are you? He asked. Are you army people? No, said Hawker. Why do you ask that? There's an army laboratory in the hills above the loch. Lots of strange people there, and lots of boats on the loch at night, coming and going. Interesting, said Jude. But tell us about the Loch Ness monster and your dead sheep. It wasn't Nessie. Nessie doesn't kill sheep, Archie said. This thing broke their necks. Did you see it? Asked Hawker. Well, I saw something big, but it moved very fast. It was back in the loch in seconds, and it was nearly dark. Right, said Hawker. Now we'd like to look at your dead sheep, please. And then we need a boat. Where can we get a fast boat, Archie? What do you want a boat for? We're going to catch this thing, said Jude, and stop it killing your sheep. For the next 4 days, Hawker and Jude went up and down Loch Ness in Archie Campbell's boat. They talked to everybody around the loch. When you see this monster, please ring us, any time, day or night. Our mobile phones are always turned on. They slept a little in the day and were out most of the night in the boat, with their guns, cameras, mobile phones, and a big flashlight, and litres of hot coffee. Once they thought they saw the monster just north of Invermorrison. Another night a call came from a little place called Foyers. They got there at 6 in the morning. It was dark and cold, and everything was very quiet. They sat in the boat, looking up and down the loch. Look, whispered Hawker. Down there, by the trees. 50 metres away, there were some tall trees by the side of the loch. There were some sheep under the trees, and something big and dark. Suddenly the sheep began to run. "Start the engine," said Hawker. "Let's get down there." When they got to the trees, they found 5 sheep with broken necks, but no monster. "It just kills and then goes away," said Jude. "Horrible." The next day, they were near Urquhart Castle, when they saw 2 older boats. It was 3 in the morning. "Those boats again," said Hawker. "We heard their engines last night, and the night before. Who are they? Let's go and see." Quietly their boat moved nearer. There were 4 men in each boat, men in grey, young men with hard faces. They watched Hawker and Jude and said nothing. "Hello," said Jude, with a friendly smile. "Who are you?" A tall man in the nearest boat answered. "Army," he said. "Who are you? What are you doing out here at this time of night?" "We're visitors," said Jude. "Looking for Nessie, of course. What are you doing?" "There's no monster in this loch," said the tall man. "Go back to your hotel and go to bed." The 2 army boats moved away down the loch. "Nice," said Hawker. "Very friendly. Arla phoned them every morning." "Get on with it," he said, "before this thing kills someone." "We can't get near it," Jude told him. "The loch is 36 kilometres long and 2 kilometres across. There are only 2 of us, and we're not getting any sleep." "You can sleep later," said Arla. "Just catch this thing." "We met some army people last night," Jude said. "What are they doing here? What do they do at their laboratory?" The phone went quiet. Then, "What laboratory?" "The army laboratory in the hills above Loch Ness." The phone went dead. Well, Jude said to Hawker. "He doesn't know, or he's not telling. The monster came out of the loch and killed sheep nearly every night." Everybody around the loch wanted to help Hawker and Jude, and their mobile phones never stopped ringing. A lot of people thought the monster was Nessie, but Archie knew it wasn't. "Nessie never killed anything in 1500 years, he said. "This is something different, and it's going to start killing people soon. Look, you need some sheep." "Sheep?" said Hawker. "Do you mean sleep?" He was very tired after 10 nights on the loch. "Of course," said Jude. "Clever Archie. Can you get us some old sheep then? Or perhaps we can use Hawker. He's nearly an old sheep by now." "Oh, shut up," said Hawker. They found a good place between Invermoriston and Urquhart Castle, with some trees by the water, and took their 6 old sheep there. For 3 nights they watched, but no monster came. The men in grey were out every night too. They were never far away from Hawker and Jude, but never came to speak to them. On the 4th night, Hawker and Jude arrived at their sheep place later than usual. It was a warm, rainy night, soft Scottish rain that never stops. When they turned the engine off, everything was quiet, just the rain whispering on the loch. Hawker got out of the boat and stood with the flashlight, watching and listening. Jude sat in the boat with her gun in her hand. "Where are the men in grey?" whispered Hawker. "Don't know," Jude whispered back. "Behind us, I think." Then everything happened at once. There was a sudden noise of boats, engines behind them. At the same time, something moved in the water in front of them. A head and 2 long arms came out of the water. "Light!" shouted Jude. "Quick!" Hawker turned on the flashlight, and at once the monster stood up and ran at Hawker through the water, its long arms going for Hawker's head. "Get down, Hawker!" screamed Jude. In a second, Hawker was under the water, and then came the sound of Jude's gun. Once, twice, and then a 3rd time. When the monster stopped moving, Hawker and Jude went to look at it. It was a greeny-black colour, bigger than a man, and with very long arms and legs. It had a small head on a long neck. It was a strange, horrible thing. A minute later, the men in grey arrived in their 2 boats. They got out and came to look at the dead monster. "Oh dear," the tall man said. Poor old Nessie. That, said Hawker, is not Nessie. So what is it? Visitors, aren't you? Said the tall man. Where from? Hawker and Jude stared at him and said nothing. Then Jude took something out of her pocket and held it up in front of the tall man's eyes. He looked at it. Oh, he said. I see. EDI. Don't see many of those. Okay, what do you want to know? What is that thing? Said Jude. The tall man looked unhappy. It is, or it was, one of the army's new fighters. It got away from our laboratory, and we just couldn't catch it. But it was alive, a living thing, said Hawker. You can make a lot of living things in a laboratory these days, said the tall man. Genetic engineering is getting very clever. This fighter can run all night, live underwater, see in the dark, but it's new. We haven't got it right yet, and it's programmed to kill anything. Is it? Said Jude. No, the tall man said quickly. Not this one. This one just kills small animals with 4 legs. Sheep, dogs, cats, things like that. Well, said Jude, that is nice to know. And where are the other monsters? Asked Hawker. For killing men, women, and children, things like that? The tall man smiled. Can't answer that, I'm afraid. Talk to your people in Brussels. Well, we must get back. Lots to do, you know. Thanks for your help. Bye. The men in grey put their dead monster in one of the boats and went away up the loch into the dark and the rain. And what did Arla say about it all? I asked. He was so angry, Hawker said. He went crazy. He didn't know about the monsters, you see, or the laboratory. The army didn't tell anyone in Brussels. And Arla liked to know everyone's secrets, said Jude. Did the army make any more monsters? I asked. Not in Scotland, said Hawker. The British army closed their laboratory after that. The Americans and the French made some monsters years later. They were smaller, like big cats, but with 8 legs. Where are they now? I said. You don't hear anything about them. Of course not, said Jude. People don't want to hear about monsters. They're in Antarctica. Or in a place deep underground, said Hawker. Nice and secret, just waiting for the next war. And so, there isn't a Loch Ness monster, and never was one, I said. Nessie, said Jude. She looked at me in the eyes and did not smile. Of course there's a Loch Ness monster. She's a blue-grey colour, has a small head, a very long neck, and is about 15 metres long. Go and look at all the photos of her on the internet. And that's the end of that.